Hey guys, time to begin our final venture. End of Exodus. How curious we all are to see how this ends. Some of you may know, but I think there are a lot of things that go undiscussed, like the whole time and commitment that was involved in the building of the tabernacle. We'll go ahead and learn about that today. Previously, it was just discussed from the Lord to Moses in clear direction, in fine detail instruction, the building of the tabernacle and the tent of worship was being communicated. So within those 40 days, we learned that God is communicating to Moses about these things, and within that time, the people are starting to get anxious and curious, and they're wondering, why is Moses gone so long? Where did he go? But again, they're feeling that creative energy. God is speaking creation and construction to Moses. So they're feeling this energy, and they decided to take it upon themselves to channel that creative energy into something completely different. So let us learn how that takes place. The quote for this one is, Adi partem alteram, which is Latin. I'm not a fluent Latin speaker. Adi partem alteram, which means hear the other side. This is by St. Augustine from pt.12 animibus. Again, this is from the mode of writing pt.12 animibus 14. But this means hear the other side. And then of course I'm looking, animibus sounds interesting. I went ahead and looked up what that means because it sounds like animal, something of that nature. But anima is the singular version. Animibus is plural for soul. So it's a reference to the souls. But anyways, hear the other side. That's exactly what's going on in this short section when Moses is speaking to God and God is speaking to Moses. The people are hearing the other side, but not directly. They don't know. They're still in the dark. They still don't understand what's going on. So again, they're hearing the other side, feeling this creative inspiration and energy, and then they take it upon themselves to do something out of character, if you will. So here we begin. When the people saw that Moses was long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him." So right away, I don't go into detail the fact that they actually took all of their gold and molded a golden calf with the help of Aaron, but I just negated that part. But they took all their gold, they molded a golden idol or calf, and they actually instilled the energy of other gods. So they were being very disruptive in the sense that even though God, who was communicating with them, who brought them out of Egypt, who showed his great might and power, they were celebrating the Passover, all of that stuff, they disregarded all of that completely and, felt neglected, I guess. That was kind of the emotion behind this. And they went to look to worship to something completely different, right? A golden calf that they instilled with the guise of other gods, which doesn't really make sense. But again, it was just the feeling of neglect that they had. They thought that they were abandoned, so they looked, to something else. So the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt." And it's very interesting. God is the one who led them out of Egypt, right? But they told Aaron, he's like, "I don't know what Moses is doing. He's the one that brought us out of Egypt." And so God kind of mirrors that energy and says the same thing. The people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt. I think that's just kind of ironic. Yes, Moses in his physical form had led them and was kind of like the orchestrator of the physical form, gathering all these people, but it's really God. But God, again, just mirrors this kind of backstabbing energy, says, "Your people, not my people, your people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt." Okay. Moses turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. So, anyways, let's go ahead and just, to put a slight in here, we were wondering, yes, the inscription on the tablets was God. People argue all the time for whatever reason. Oh, God doesn't have hands. God can't write. That sort of thing. But no, this was the writing or the inscription of God. However form he decided to write in the stone, with whatever majestic power he has, it was in fact his writing and his language. Everything took place on the stone. Let's learn about what happens to those tablets. But when Joshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moses, "There was the sound of war in the camp." Moses replied, "This is not the sound of victory. It is not the sound of defeat. It is the sound of singing that I hear." When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. So he was very angry. He was very, very angry. And the Lord was angry as well. I don't know exactly when this happened. I honestly forget when they were having this conversation. I believe it was maybe before he was coming down the mountain, but the Lord was convinced he was just going to wipe all of the people out right then and there. The Lord wanted to just wipe everybody out. He was so angry at the fact that they did this and they had this energy about them. They turned away from him completely. He was about to just kill everybody right then and there. But Moses was convincing him. He was like, "No, we put all this time and effort. We got them out. These are your people. They are the line of Abraham. Why would you do that?" So God exercised his patience, and he graciously turned away and just said, "Peace." He's like, "I'm not, about to do that," but he graciously turned away at that moment. He was very angry himself, just as Moses was when he saw that the people were dancing and singing around the calf. He stood at the entrance to the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. Then he said to them, This is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. Each man strap a sword to his side. Go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other, killing his brother and friend and neighbor." The Levites did as Moses commanded, and that day about 3,000 of the people died. So, of course, the rage and the fury was not without some kind of consequence. People still died, 3,000 of the sort, right? 3,000 people died because of this mistake that they had made. So, yes, that happened. Trying to think what else I'm leaving out here. Not much, right? I guess we know about the Levites, right, and their tendencies. They all rallied to Moses, and of course the Levites are known to be the violent ones, right? So they are the ones that went and massacred 3,000 people, which is unfortunate, but I guess it was better than everybody dying in the camp. That would have been much more unfortunate and scary. Now Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside of the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. The Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing you have asked, because I am pleased with you and know you by name." So I think this is actually where the Lord is petitioning to, I don't even know, but I think, okay, what happens, I do know, actually. What happens is the Lord says, "I don't want to, watch you guys anymore. I don't want to be looking out after you. I'm just going to go and separate myself." So the Lord is about to turn away and walk away completely. But Moses is like, "No, we talked about this thing, like you're supposed to stay with us, everything." It's almost like all that inspiration just kind of was depleted with their actions, which is unfortunate. But the Lord was begging, or excuse me, Moses was begging the Lord to go ahead and just, see it through, right? Stick through this time and stick by our sides. And so the Lord is saying, "Here, I will do the very thing you have asked, because I am pleased with you," and we had this conversation. So let us just go through with it. And the Lord said to Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. So they're actually, I was wondering, it's like, because they broke, maybe that's why we don't have the tablets, we don't have any piece of that remnant, but they actually recreated them, so Moses was able to chisel out the stone, and the Lord actually rewrote the tablets, which is cool. Still don't know, where they are. Do people have pieces of them? I don't know. Something I could, I guess, look up, but I don't know. Anyways, and the Lord was about to reveal himself to Moses as well. Again, we're skipping a few lines, but he's about to reveal himself to Moses. Of course, they have been talking face to face, but it's been like a bright light obscuring God's actual face. So Moses has never seen his actual face, and Moses is asking the Lord to reveal himself to him. He says, "That's fine. I will come down, and you can see my figure, but it's going to be the back of me. You're not actually going to see my face," which is just interesting. But as he passed in front of Moses, complaining, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for their sin of their parents to the third and fourth generation. So it shows that, yes, the Lord is very forgiving. He has the power and the control to completely obliterate, yet he doesn't so many times. He kind of hands back, but of course that doesn't go without punished, and generations definitely carry the burden, which is, again, another unfortunate thing, but it's better than the alternative of just obliteration. Very clearly he says here, do not make any idols. Do not do it. And we've been talking about this a lot, right? Idolatry. We don't have things that we sit in front of and worship, like golden things, but we do have televisions, and we do have other things that are maybe a hindrance to us. Do not make any idols, right? Don't make anything a priority over the Lord. Do not completely turn away and make something else just like a figure in your life. It's not good, right? Not good. Then the Lord said to Moses, write down these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. Moses assembled the whole Israelite community and said to them, these are the things the Lord has commanded you to do. For 6 days work is to be done, but the seventh day shall be your holy day, a day of Sabbath rest to the Lord. So this is where he starts to command and starts to instruct the people in the work that was communicated with the 4 days on the mountain. They are going to build a tabernacle for the Lord to dwell in, so he could stay close to them and remain a spiritual way for them to serve the Lord, right? It's kind of like the first church. It is, I think, the first church, right? So from what you have, take an offering for the Lord. Everyone who is willing to bring to the Lord an offering of gold, silver, and bronze, blue and purple and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, and other type of durable leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastpiece. And we talk a lot about the ephod. It's just like a piece of clothing that the people would wear, the priests or whomever would wear when they're seeing God or spending time with God. So now we're just going to go into a bunch of just bits and pieces of everything that they did. Again, it's going to be part of a repetition from what we talked about with God and Moses on the mountain, but this is all the work that they're doing, same exactly as instructed, as described before. The curtains of the courtyard with its posts and bases, and the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard. The leaders brought onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastpiece. And so the people were restrained from bringing more, because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. Then they made 50 loops along the edge of the curtain in one set, and also along the edge of the curtain on the other set. They made 6 frames for the far end, that is, the west end of the tabernacle. For the entrance of the tent they made a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and finely twisted linen, the work of an embroiderer. Then he made 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Then they made a lampstand of pure gold. They hammered out its base and shaft, and made its flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms as one piece with them. Flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms of one piece with them. Okay. Then they made 2 gold rings below the molding, 2 on each of the opposite sides, to hold the poles used to carry it. They inserted the poles into the rings so that they would be on the sides of the altar for carrying it. They made it hollow out of boards. The bases for the posts were bronze. The hooks and brands on the posts were silver, and their tops were overlaid with silver, so that all the posts of the courtyard had silver bands. The 100 talents of silver were used to cast the bases for the sanctuary and for the curtain. 100 bases from the 100 talents, 1 talent for each base, and a talent is like a unit of measurement. I'm sure you can gather that. Very extravagant, right? I love this. And then they fastened them on their shoulder pieces of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. They fastened 2 gold chains to the rings at the corner of the breastpiece. For Aaron and his sons they made tunics of fine linen, the work of a weaver. The pure gold lampstand with its row of lamps and all of its accessories, and the olive oil for the light. So again, this jumps around just a little bit. I'm not reading every single line, but if you were to go into chapter 39 and read everything that they had done, it's again the same as what God discussed to Moses. Very detailed, very intricate, very much clear instructions about how to construct this place of worship. So again, this is no simple task like casting a golden calf or anything of that nature. This is an actual piece of craft. This is like real craftsmanship. Takes a lot of different types of craftsmanship to go ahead and create something that is worthy of the Lord's presence, right? That just kind of goes to compare, like, yes, you can, name anything that has like power, right? It's nothing going to be compared to what God will actually instruct for something to hold his presence and his greatness. It's going to be much greater, much more grand and important. The Lord instructs, place the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. So the tabernacle was set up on the first day of the first month in the 2nd year, and burned fragrant incense on it as the Lord commanded him. So again, this gives a little bit of time frame here. So they've been out wherever they are near Mount Sinai in the desert 2 years now. It says what it says. It says what it says. I just lost where it was. So the first day of the first month, the 2nd year. So this was the beginning of the 2nd year. So I guess not completely 2 years, right? The first month in the 2nd year. So they were going on a little bit over a year into the 2nd year. So then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And all the travels of the Israelites, whenever the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle, they would set out. But if the cloud did not lift, they did not set out until the day it lifted. So the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day and So the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day, and fire was in the cloud by night, in the sight of all the Israelites during their travels. So again, this just describes the greatness, right? Before, the Lord had established himself on the top of Mount Sinai, and that is where the cloud would come over, so it was like a suitable place for him. But they kind of needed to move. They needed to maneuver. They couldn't just stay around Mount Sinai forever. So this is why the construction of the tabernacle was so important, because the Lord was actually like thinking, he's like, I don't even really want to like hang out with you guys anymore. Just with all their antics. He's just saying, he was telling Moses within this portion here, he was like, I really don't even want to be around you guys. I should just let you be, He's like, I should go focus on something else, essentially what he was thinking. But of course Moses was like, don't do that. No, I mean, we need you with us to really convince the Israelites, because even through all of this, they were still kind of like all over the place. They weren't really like certain, but with the construction of this tabernacle, they could actually take the tabernacle with the poles, right, move it, the tent, right, they can kind of deconstruct it, take it apart, and then set it back up wherever they were going, and the Lord would go with them. And it was just, again, a place of dwelling, and it was a clean place. It was a carefully crafted place. So it was, not something that could not contain him. It was made of gemstones and silver and gold and all of these fine metals. So it was an appropriate place for him to be. And again, they used it as kind of a sign. When the cloud would lift away from the tabernacle, then they would get up and move. And then when it was settled again, they knew to like sit and settle. So it was a good way for them to kind of manage their travels and such. But that's it, you guys. That is the end of Exodus. We had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of back and forths, a lot of communication directly from the Lord. So when people say like, oh, God is like aliens, and there was no clear sign of God, it was always just aliens helping people and doing all this stuff, it's like, yes, I'm sorry if you've never heard that before, but just in the content that I see, it's just, I hear a lot of like backlash, not backlash, but just kind of like reasoning for proving that aliens exist, and like kind of disregarding everything that happened in the Bible. That's what I hear a lot. Yes, extraterrestrials do exist, and they were like what we talked about before, the Anu people or the Anunnaki, and they helped with a lot of genetic modification and things like that, and they helped do certain things to kind of establish civilization as well, okay? But as far as having somebody reign over people and having a serious God, right? Say, I am going to make this my responsibility. I'm going to watch them continually, because the Anu people and whomever else, extraterrestrials that had visited the planet, they kind of like back and forth. They weren't heavily committed into caring for us and making sure that we were good. I digress, right? But God was actually the one saying, I will take responsibility. I will communicate directly. I will look out after people. I will prove these great feats. I will, destroy people. I will build people up. I will be the one to take the responsibility again. Like, it's just, he has so much of a bigger role that I feel like sometimes we just ignore and don't acknowledge. So that's why it's important to really look back in the text and really realize, because of the great detail that's included, it's hard to just pass off as fabrication or as myths or some kind of thing, because there's so much detail and there's so many things that you can't deny, like that this didn't happen and that, it was just made up. Like, nobody really has that type of imagination as much as we want to think that. Everything is just kind of, everything that is imagined is very surface level. It's not very deep. You can kind of tell what is a story and what's not. But when we read the Bible, when we're even, like, as I'm talking about it now, we're only reading certain pieces of it. We're not even reading it line by line. But when you really look at it line by line, it's kind of exhausting in a way, just the amount of detail that's included, and just it's so hard. It goes deep and in so many levels that it's hard to acknowledge or pass off as fabrication. But yeah, this is the point. This is why it's interesting to read this kind of stuff, because you will get a lot of pushback and people thinking like, oh, it's just the Bible, it's just the God of the Israelites, right? No big deal. But this God of the Israelites really made a huge impact, and we should be acknowledging him. Of course, there are other galactic beings and things like that are also important, but we're not really focused on that right now. We're focused on understanding the foundation of our culture and how we are as people and why we are the way we are. And the Bible is the best way to do that, because it's, again, been around for a while, and it's the only thing that's stuck through every chapter of our lives thus far. Like, you can talk about like the compendium of the emerald tablets, or the things that came before that were, started like the Ten Commandments, or started this, or the laws of Maya, or whatever. These things are true, and they happened maybe even before the Bible, and they were ways and things that were implemented beforehand. But what has actually stuck through this whole entire time? Not any of those things, because we don't talk about those things anymore. So we're focused on the things that are still around and easy to reference and easy to take a hold of. Like, anybody can go on Amazon and buy a Bible for really nothing. People give out free Bibles. The Quran is the same way. It's not hard to access. It's not information that you really have to like research and dig for and uncover. Like, this is completely accessible information that anybody can take a hold of. Thousands of different online Bibles and reference points that you can look at. So that's why we like to go over it, because it's accessible. and it makes sense because it's pretty, again, a detailed description of everything that had taken place. Not everything, right? It's not everything. We're leaving out some other things, but it's just what is sticking right now. That's just all I have to say. Just the things that are important, I guess, right? But yes, yes. That's it, you guys. That's the end of Exodus. I hope you enjoyed our little journey through the desert, right? The journey through Mount Sinai. We got a little bit of taste of slavery for the first time in Egypt. And yeah, so that was that. And I hope you enjoy. We're going to go into Leviticus next. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a continuation on this theme of worship and, you know, what it means to worship and what it means to praise God, that type of feeling. But we'll see what happens. All right, peace, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday and enjoy the rest of your week. All right, bye-bye.